and hand it over to Adam to introduce Sovereign. Take it away.
Thank you. Many lifetimes ago, there was a boy born with a name rooted in old world mentalities. This boy knew he was unique and did not desire the responsibilities of the past, yet yearned for the bright possibilities of a different future. Taking the path less traveled, he entered hibernation in the cocoon, seeking transformation, soon emerging from the chrysalis with a new, dynamic, and powerful identity, they. Sitting here in front of you today, they are a pillar of embodied leadership, displayed through their unwavering dedication to create a just and equitable world. They will show up for the difficult work to face their fears and overcome adversity. They are a loving, caring, compassionate friend who will selflessly be there for you when you need them the most. I know this because together we have transcended the boundaries of life and death, keeping each other sane and laughing along the way. They have been an invaluable companion to me, and I don't know where I would be without them. They are an innovative trailblazer ripe with emergent strategies for leading us into the dawn of a new day. So it is with great appreciation and admiration that I introduce them. They are Sovereign.
Thank you so much for that. I'm not gonna cry yet. How is everyone doing? I hope everyone is well. I invite you to have an open mind and an open heart as I show you mine. So I wanted to start by just making a declarative statement. In the words of James Baldwin in 1962, to be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in rage almost all of the time. And that truly speaks to just my experience, where I've been, my journey up into this moment. And, you know, to be honest, it's really hard to be here sometimes. And I hate the ways that we have to break and contort ourselves to participate in a system that doesn't care about who we are, but only cares about what we produce. I hate that you have to be here, and I hate that some of us have inherited power and some of us have had to pay for that inheritance with our blood, our bodies, and our sanity. I hate that there's evil, and I hate that I was chosen to fight it sometimes. I wish a whole lot of the time that I hadn't been, and that I could just get beamed up, as y'all have heard me say, beam me up, and return to source where I belong. I know a lot of you wish in moments that I hadn't been chosen, that I hadn't been here. But this isn't about wishes, this is about choices. I believe we can beat this evil and this system, not in some distant or dystopian future, not when armies are deployed and we are running rampant scared, but right now, in this very moment. I want to finish this once and for all. Right now you're asking yourself, what makes this different? What makes this time different? What makes this any more than a bunch of people following suit and being controlled by an invisible automation? What power do I actually have? And to some degree that may be true, but in this moment, we do not have the same, in this moment, we don't have the same powers. However, here's the part where you make a choice. What if you could have that power now? The sun is setting on this old age of charismatic, individualistic, one-man shows, the one. We are ruled by the dreams of men who are long gone. They were powerful men in shaping our reality in this country and this world and who we are, but we are more powerful than all of them combined. So I say we change the rules. I say my power should be our power. From now on, every single being in the world who might be a leader will be a leader. Every being who can have the power will have the power. Can stand up, will stand up. Every one of us. Make a choice. Are you ready to be strong? Are you ready to guide the next generation toward a future that works for all? Because they're looking to us. Are you ready? So the purpose of my thesis is to uproot, compost, and transmute scarcity-based power into abundance-based power, while also uncovering complex and multifaceted issues such as alienation, institutional prejudices, insidious racism, canonical exclusion, linguistic exclusion, non-recognition and disrespect, white hegemony and power, discursive silencing, philosophical and territorial arrogance and indignation. I wanted to create a text, a medicine, a solution, at most and at the least, seeds that could potentially lead to alternate futures for those currently scaling the walls of the academy, for those who may be confined within borders, and those who may feel isolated and out of place and marginalized. The purpose of this thesis is to speak to future leaders of color who might need confirmation of their sanity, a voice that says, I know your pain and blues. It is also a text that speaks to the importance of fighting back while empowering others to do the same. And another thing is, it's not just on us as Black folks, as queer folks, as the other. There is an opportunity for all of us to gain something, to change our minds, to rebuild our subconscious, and to make new mistakes instead of replicating our history. So what I'd like to do is to read my abstract, just because there's not that much time. And so to allot for that, I would just like to read what my attempt was to do in this work. So the building blocks of the thoughts and foundation of our subconscious are indeed drenched in capitalism and whiteness. Our socialization has been essential in the creation of leadership philosophy, praxis, and pedagogy that defaults to Eurocentric values, beliefs, and norms. This thesis unearths these philosophical elements within the leadership lexicon and dares to dismantle, reimagine, then reassemble a working leadership approach through race, through queerness, through the utilization of multicultural, servant, and primal leadership approaches. Also the cultivation of emotional intelligence, contemplative spirituality, and this idea of inner work. The second phase consists of both human and non-human perspectives, such as emergent strategy and deep adaptation. And to facilitate those ways, using the way of counsel and a method that I call fish alchemation method for disrupting the social production of knowledge and power within leadership. It is only through this process it is possible to examine the influence praxis and pedagogy exert in shaping our subconscious, which determines how leaders and leadership models impact society. The experiences and identities of Black people, Indigenous people, people of color, all who have been systematically neglected from society, are excluded, yet are essential in the development of future leaders and the creation of new leadership models. Although there are theories and philosophies that do center these perspectives of our most vulnerable in society, they are practiced in isolation, and they are not reflected in leadership, as one would think. This thesis challenges the current configuration of leadership while offering a new emerging leadership practice and pedagogy that could lead to transformation of the individual and the collective. So during this process, this has been a tremendous journey. And as I have gone through this program, as I continue to live life, it has become clear to me that my experience, my body, my perspective is something that is very much needed in leadership. And so I created this thesis statement An essential praxis in pedagogy that is missing within the leadership lexicon is the integration of experiences and identities of those who have been systematically oppressed within our current living system. The inclusion of contemplative practices such as mindfulness, deep listening, meditation, may develop capacities for compassion and awareness. However, these capacities have not included the perspectives of Black, Indigenous, queer people of color, the underserved, and the exploited. Through the systemic integration of these communities and perspectives and adding this practice that I call queering, we can cultivate a generation of new leaders and establishing a new praxis in pedagogy for truly making our lives sustainable from the individual to the collective. Now, we've heard from our previous conversation with Adam, you know, whiteness has played a role in the realities that we live in this moment. And it was on my journey of trying to find a way to empower others, to empower myself, that I came across this, this piece of information that I feel supports this idea that we have inherited power and also inherited trauma. So there's a letter which is called from a person named Willie Lynch, and the letter of making the slave is a speech that he delivered to an audience on the bank of the James River in Virginia in 1712 regarding control of slaves within the colony. The speaker, William Lynch, is said to have been a slave owner in the West Indies and was summoned in Virginia in 1712, in part due to several slave revolts in the area prior to his visit. The Willie Lynch letter is an account of a short speech given by him in which he tells other slave owners that he has discovered the secret to controlling enslaved Africans by setting them against one another. In this letter, Willie states, continually through the breaking of uncivilized savages by throwing the Black female into a frozen psychological state of independence, by killing the protected Black male image, and by creating a submissive dependent mind on the male slave, we have created an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever, unless a phenomenon occurs and reshifts the position of the male and female savages. The Black slave, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and continue to be self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. And so taking our history and putting that into the context of today, you know, leadership, organizational structures, all of these things for the most part are held in the hands of whiteness, mostly white men. And so my call and my thesis was an attempt to not only take that power and transmute it, but also to implement ways in which all sides can heal. And in order to do that, I needed to come up with a strategy, or what I call working leadership components, that I believe are essential into transmuting this power. And so the components of this leadership approach were the inclusion of, you know, Black, Indigenous, queer people of color, the underserved and exploited perspectives. This is really important because I think a lot of us, sometimes we don't realize the privileges that we have. And sometimes we don't realize who's in the room. And so it is my belief, by us being able to cultivate relationships with people who are different, going past the superficial, going past what a friendship can do for you, or you going beyond that superficial, like what are the complexities of having a relationship with someone who has a different experience than you. And my next leadership approach was what I call queering. And queering is this amazing thing that goes beyond sexuality. It is the commitment to disrupt. It is the commitment to orientate oneself away from tradition towards something else, anything else at this point. We are in deep need of a collective queering. The other parts of my my approach are a combination of multicultural, servant, and primal leadership approaches. And these approaches cultivate an emotional intelligence. It's one thing to lead and tell others what to do or to have power, but it's another thing to feel the ramifications of that power, to really deeply understand what that power was given to you for. And for a little self-disclosure, my identity as being a gender came to me because I realized that I was more than the body that I'm in. And I have the ability to take form into what is needed at the time and at that moment. And me realizing that was an effort of learning about my emotional intelligence and learning about who I am as a person, which leads to the other component, which is contemplative spirituality approach. In our program, we've learned the gifts of meditation. We've learned how to hold complexity, how to take breaths, how to extend a moment. But also with that power comes a responsibility. And sometimes folks will use that power to spiritually bypass and not see what's in front of them. And so with this approach, I'm asking to lean into that. And then there's also the groups as living systems approach, which is this idea that we are interdependent beings that rely on one another. And it takes a combination of all of these components to really, truly understand that. But it's not just it's one thing to have these components, but it's another to integrate them. And so what I've created are tools of integration, or at least what I feel like create a container for people to engage in these components and work through them and work with them with others. And these tools of integration are emergent strategy, which is created by Adrienne Marie Brown. And it's this idea that connects the ecological and the social. There's also what I feel in a step that takes this idea a step further is deep adaptation. And deep adaptation is emergent strategy, but also takes us to this other place of understanding and knowing that we may be facing the end of humanity. And if we're gonna face it, let's face it with love. Let's face it with grace. Let's face it with honor. And the way that we do that is we become the best versions of ourselves as humanly possible. And another tool of integration I would say is what I've called the way of counsel. I had the opportunity to go and participate in counsel practices from the Center of Counsel in California. And I know a lot of the professors have this same tool as we have used it during our time here at Naropa. But I had the opportunity to see it work in person and have firsthand experience and understanding and truly integrating the power of story. And so it's through our stories that we understand our relationships. It's where we understand our connections. It's where we understand each other. And we get another opportunity and a deeper opportunity to experience ourselves. And a way that we can do this is through what I call fish acclimation. And it's essentially a process where I believe that all of us are at different stages of our healing journey. And so what would it mean for us to be in the same place at the same time with the same language to be able to build a new world? And so that takes some time and that takes some holding. And so with this process, you take folks who are in various stages of healing and you put them together and allow them through counsel to process their feelings, to process what they're going through. And then at some point in time, each group will equalize, and then we are able to have similar conversations to move us forward. And so The findings and results of this journey and this process and recommendations for future work, I found that a lot of these theories that I mentioned and components, they exist in isolation. And I also realized that a lot of leaders and books and the things in which we consume and create our leadership models are written by mostly white men, all, and then those who are what I call proximity to whiteness. And so it's an interesting journey to try and piece together these different approaches and finding a way to give my experience to others who may not even agree with what I'm saying, but at least have the understanding and the emotional intelligence to be like, we may not agree, but I feel you and I'm with you and I'm here to create with you. And so this has been an incredible learning process for me. I mean, I have deeply, because of this journey, I've learned so much of who I am, but I've also learned that it's possible for all of us to have this power and this perspective that I have. I am no one special. I'm just someone who loves humanity so much that I'm willing to break myself and rebuild myself as many times as it takes to be what this world needs. It is a really interesting, I've told this story a little bit, but it's an interesting life to live when all you hear is the pain and suffering of the world. It sits with me in my bed at night. It walks with me when I go to the bathroom. And this is just a way for me to try to quell those pains. And the only way that I feel like I can quell them is to extend myself and to extend this power beyond me. Because leadership should not rest in the hands of one. Leadership should rest in the hands of all of us. So this has been a journey for me in cultivating my resiliency and cultivating, essentially building blocks for a new culture. That's what this is. I am literally constructing a new culture, a culture that centers everyone, a culture that not only centers humans, but also considers nature as well. And I will say the most valuable lesson that I've learned is that I am truly, truly sovereign. And that is a gift that I want to extend to you. So I wanted to stop there. I have some questions that I feel truly tell the story of the process that I've gone through, and I'll include them as soon as I figure out how to do it. I'll include them in the thread. But one of the things that I wanted to state tonight is I wanted to offer some invitations. I wanted to offer an invitation to center the land and enable it to dream through you. I wanted to extend an invitation to embrace the whole of community, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the broken within yourself. I want to extend an invitation to face complicity and harm with integrity and without defensiveness, and a random invitation to develop stamina to deal with your shit. I also have some questions that I would like to ask, or, if after this you can feel free to ask me. In what ways could you be operating from desires for affirmation and validation? In what ways could you be operating from a desire for placating conflict? In what ways could you be operating from deep-seated insecurities? And in what ways could you be operating from desires of certainty, coherence, and control? And so I just would like to stop there because I think the nectar of this talk and this presentation will be the questions. So I would like to conclude, and I would like to thank everyone for listening to me, to let me rant. I know my cohort has, I put my cohort through it, and I just really want to shout them out because it was through my cohort that I learned that I was a leader. My cohort allowed me to be myself. And even when they shut down, when they rolled their eyes, when they couldn't handle things, when I couldn't handle things, when I would blow up, you know, that was held. That was held in such a way that I could never repay. Like, I get to be me because of you. And I just wanted to take the time to truly thank you all for that. Every single one of you is in my heart, and I'll never forget it. And I hope that this was an invitation, and I hope that you got some power from this, because as we move forward outside of Naropa and into this world, I just hope that we all remember what we went through. I hope we remember the good, the bad, and the ugly, and just to know that we are truly resilient. We truly are. Thank you.
Sav. Yeah, thank you. If you'd like to ask a question or write it in the chat, please do. There's a lot in the chat from when you were talking. We'll make sure that when I give you the recording, Sav, I'll make sure that you get a transcript of that as well.
Thank you. Alexander, I could keep going forever. I really trying to control myself.
Sovereign. Oh, wonderful, wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what's the first step?
Right. I think the first step is really just taking what I've said and making a choice that you want to move beyond what we are now. I mean, it takes that, just that intention will take you to a whole new life. Just choosing it.
Are you coming?
Yeah, I mean, you already know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Adam.
Well, I know you asked us a lot of questions, Sav, but I have a question for you too. What does resilient leadership mean to you? And maybe in relation to all of this.
Resilient leadership to me is an opportunity to go beyond where we are. I've told you this before, like when I'm in my room, I'm literally sitting in a space and time where this is all solved. I'm sitting in a space and time where I'm not a leader, so to speak. I'm more of a steward and a person who cultivates energy and helps others. I think resilient leadership is, again, an opportunity for us to really build a new world. And it starts here with I feel like this program and this word, resilient leadership, provided us an opportunity to meet each other and go through some shit, right? Like, we went through a lot. And this was an opportunity for us to truly be tested. And I've seen each and every one of us rise to that. And I feel like, yeah, I feel like resilient leadership, I don't know, it means opportunity to really, truly grow and go beyond business as usual. You know, like, I feel like it's one of those things where I'm waiting for things to show up in this way where I don't have the language to articulate it, but it's waiting for us to give it language. And the only way that you can do that, right? And as we know this, is to be able to have the freedom to experiment, to go back and forth, to try things, to make not the same mistakes, but new mistakes. Like, I'm tired of making the same old mistakes. I'm tired of people holding on to power. I'm tired of people trying to force me to articulate my vision through their lens instead of them meeting me where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it means to me.
Aho.
Faculty mentor voice here. I've learned so much from you. And I've learned so much from, as an educator, about the deep listening to what it is that your voice really was, and this amazing task you took on of having this to say and putting it into this form, and the dance you did with that of yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And it's been a real honor to walk along with you and get confused and get it and listen and try to hold a space for both. Like, yes, and you're still writing a thesis, so how are you going to do this? And yeah, so thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. And to some degree, you know, I think the way we do it is just to keep trying. You know, I think, as you know, it's definitely a give and take. And I do appreciate, you know, that dance. Because it's through that dance, for me, where my magic is the longer you spend time with me, I'll start to plant some seeds in your heart. And they'll start to grow, and then you'll start to see it. And all it takes is just spending time. That's my particular power, is just spend time with me, you know, and knowing myself and knowing that my love language is words and affirmation. As you can tell, like, that's how I communicate these things. And yeah, it's been a huge challenge, you know, because this idea, this construct, this new world has been tugging at me since like 2012. And so to be able to try to push it into this thesis form has been a challenge. But also, those who are interested, if you look at my thesis, it's also an educational system. It's also a way of building a new culture. It's beyond just concept. It's a way of life. And we have to commit to, you know, going through it. It's not going to be easy. That's the other thing. And we've all talked about this too, is like, it's not going to be cute. You know, like, I think a lot of us want things to be cute and pretty. I think that we're going to have to get a little messy before it gets better. But I'm committed to that.
Beautiful. We have time for one more.
Hello, Sovereign. This is Ty. Thank you for quoting Baldwin. I really appreciate you intoning his voice as a preacher and an activist at the beginning of your presentation. I see you wearing the Black Panther Party jacket. Are there any resilient models of leadership within the African-American experience that you can talk more about?
So are there any say that again?
Examples of resilient leadership that informed your thinking?
Yeah, I mean, just, you know, first and foremost, the Black Panthers. Going to San Francisco State and getting my undergrad in sociology and ethnic studies, I was just amazed at just the desire of the Panthers to want to give to their community in a way that's like, oh, no, we're not going to wait for someone to just like give us what we need. There is plenty of power within our community to give it to each other, which is why it's so, I mean, the way that the Panthers fell, right, with COINTELPRO and how people were implanted to deteriorate that from the inside. And let's be clear, like the Panthers weren't perfect. I'm not here to just be like, oh, the Black Panthers were like a perfect like movement. You know, it wasn't perfect, but you know what? Like it was close. It was close in the sense of it empowered us as Black folks to really just take our power into our hands. And so a lot of that is in my thesis, just this idea that like, I don't have to wait for you, you know, institution, you know, whiteness. I don't have to wait. But what I can do is I can offer an opportunity to give you power and understanding so that you can heal whatever that is that you've inherited and transmute that to become something else. So then you can see me and we can go build this world together if that's what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Somebody's asking what the questions were again, and then that'll be the last thing we'll close.
I'm gonna add them, hopefully in this thing. And also, I know who this is. I can email it to you too, Justos. I can email it to you because I feel like it's against me. And I can't load it up.
Well, let's unmute everyone and let's hear it for Sav.
Woo!
Incredible.
Oh,
Yay.
Congratulations.
Love you.
You
Erin?
finished.
Thank you for your light and your knowledge.
Beautiful.
Thank you all so much. Let's close this with our bow or our gesture of just honoring that we've all showed up here together tonight. So we're bowing. Thank you all so much for your time and attention.